What's good, people? It's Arya here, and you're listening to the Mind Over Mix Up podcast. And this is going to be one of those rare group discussions because everyone's on board. We've got Kaz, we've got Mika, we've got Tempest. We're all here, and we're going to talk about a pretty interesting subject today. We're going to be talking about fighting games and the difficulty curve, right? Because that difficulty curve it's something. It is actually pretty nutty when you take into account different players, different aspects of said players, right? How well or how poorly they can latch on to certain things, how well they acclimate to the games that they play, the games of choice that they decide to stick to. And there's a lot. There are layers, and fighting games are, well, they're hard, as has been stated here before. There's so much to get into with that, and I think everybody's got some pretty interesting thoughts to share on a lot of things about it. Personally, I think that one of the key things about fighting games as a whole that anyone needs to actually come to terms with, first and foremost, is the fact that if you're playing a fighting game, it's not always the concept of you trying to figure out the game. If you're playing a fighting game, one of the important concepts to keep in mind is that you're going to inevitably end up playing against other people. So it's you versus the other player, right? This is stepping far past the concept of execution and everything else that comes into learning fighting games, right? But a lot of people get discouraged since there are so many things that come into play between playing against specific people and then playing against like randoms or playing against other people that they know are better, etc., etc. They can end up playing against someone who they had trouble with one point or another, and they'll do better against them in one particular day. Like Tempest talked about this on one of his videos, one of his Eye of the Storm videos. And then they can end up just kind of falling to pieces in regards to their overall confidence, right? And it can do a lot to impact how they learn and what they can and can't pick up, because they can lose confidence in themselves, or they could become overconfident and feel like they don't have as much to learn due to that overconfidence. There are so many layers to it that go into things even beyond execution and stuff, and I think it's an important thing to really talk about. So I think we'll just kind of let everybody else get their thoughts in with this and go from there, right? Because there's a lot that can be discussed here.
Okay, should we start with Tempest then?
I mean, yeah, we can. So, as far as stuff like that's concerned, and I know I've actually had this conversation with Mika and Arya before, but I really do feel like there's what's called like a reward system that you kind of feel when you play games. And there are, as I mentioned in my last Mind Over Mix-Up thing, there are games like Tekken and Smash that kind of give you an immediate sense of satisfaction. Like you press buttons and you feel like you've accomplished something while doing it. Whether or not you're actually truly doing something is a different story, but the game gives you the concept of, hey, I just did something really cool with minimal effort. And then you have games like Street Fighter where you're pressing buttons, you're hitting people, but you're not getting those cool moves unless you're actually executing something like a quarter circle or a half circle or something along those lines, or a full circle or 360. And then you have games like King of Fighters and Guilty Gear, where
Whew, that's a steep hill.
yeah,
That's a steep hill.
Right. It's like, oh man, King of Fighters.
High speed game, high level King of Fighters is even if you know your way around the game, it can be difficult to just keep up because at least in my experience, the King of Fighters games are kind of like Street Fighter in the way that it's pretty straightforward to understand what is going on. Like, if you do a DP, it probably works like a DP. If you do a fireball, probably works like a fireball. But there are exceptions, of course. But King of Fighters being rushdown.exe,
It really
even
is.
if you know all the things that are going on, it can be a challenge just keeping up. Yeah. Somebody rushing you down with K-Dash. It's like, it helps if you know how his rushdown works, how he can mix you up, what to look out for, but it's K-Dash, and he's gonna be mad quick about all of these exchanges and hyper hops if he knows what he's doing, and even if you can see it coming, it's like, well, I expected a hyper hop, but it's so quick, I also have to actually block the thing, even though I know it's probably coming.
Eesh, yeah, hyper hops and stuff. In KOF in particular, they just lend themselves really well to rushdown and such a frenetic pace in the KOF games. So yeah, it's definitely a hill to climb when you compare it to something like Street Fighter or other games, even like Koihime, which are those are the Koihime games, really footsie based. You want a game that'll teach you footsies? Koihime's that game, and due to that, the nature of most matchups is very defensive based, right? So I mean, it kind of, you catch the flow of things because no one wants to make a mistake and become an unwilling participant in a CMV. So
yeah, that's the thing. And to give you an example, especially if people have at least been around for the past 10 years or so, because there hasn't been that many KOF games in the past X amount of years. But when KOF 13 came out, people they were excited to play the game, and at that point there were people who thought that they knew execution. They were doing these one frame links and stuff, and maybe a few people played Third Strike. They were like, yeah, I know about execution. I remember within the first week of KOF 13, there were so many people who'd never played a KOF game before, or a Guilty Gear game. They were just like, this game is so hard. Why is the execution so tight? What is wrong with this game? And a few of us, matter of fact, Arya, you were one of them, we were sitting there like, wow, and 13's execution is actually forgiving compared to some of the other games.
yeah,
and
in
it's
some ways, but then you do have to take into account if we're talking about the combo trials in KOF 13. Oh, there's nothing forgiving about those.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Yeah.
That game was this is KOF players. You know this game feels better than the other ones, but you're gonna have to do something with that knowledge. We're not holding your hand anymore.
Yeah, King of Fighters 14, at least here, and to most people, I believe, everybody that I talked to recognized the King of Fighters 13 was, in some ways, a return to form, but in some ways it was also extremely hardcore. It was like the FGC's.
I would agree with that.
It's unforgiving. It's super high end when it comes to combos. So even old school King of Fighters players might be daunted unless they were King of Fighters 2002 Angel players who were used to getting 8,000 hit juggle combos with like 200 one frame links per minute, you know. If you weren't one of those, it's like, oh yeah, you're just a regular Kyo player. Have fun, because you're gonna have to do some combos that involve Rekkas, that involve EPs, that involve his double quarter circle forward super, and you're gonna have to do them back to back, just back to back, back to back, back to back, and the game is really lenient when it comes to the buffer. So you're gonna be messing up a lot, because there's like 4 moves that overlap. They have such similar inputs, but you want light Rekka, heavy Rekka, light Rekka, heavy Rekka, then the DP, then the super. Not the Rekka again, but he might do that. So start over.
We sincerely hope you didn't skip 11. Did you skip 11? Oh, you don't know what a dream cancel is?
Hope you like doing like intense frame links and juggle combos while dashing.
Yeah.
It's like, we hope you enjoy Carpal Tunnel.
Yeah, seriously. Right? Koihime's combo trials are... they're no less forgiving, right? The later ones in Koihime get pretty rough too.
Oh my god, yeah.
And again, that's a game where footsies is the focus, right? That one's such a weird one because it's a game that teaches you the importance of what you need to be doing outside of just going for the big moves, outside of just going for whatever combo you might have learned from insert thing here, right? You need to know how to place your attacks. You need to know which buttons you need to press when, and you have to be able to play intelligently around your character's strengths and your opponent's weaknesses. And that's just something that adds to the layers of difficulty when it comes to learning things, right? Because that's a step that a lot of people end up skipping, right? There are players that have all kinds of things that they want to do when they get into fighting games. They want to learn what it is like to hit these long, crazy looking combos and things like that. They want to know what it's like to be able, some people just want to be able to mix people up and kind of get that feeling that, I outplayed insert person here, I've got them shook this bad, right? Some people get a kick out of that feeling. Other people, it's purely for the, the competitive aspect that comes from it. They get a kick out of just being able to beat people, period. And
Win prizes.
yeah,
Climb the ranking ladder.
yeah, exactly.
Be at the top of the tournament.
And it's like, whatever the reason, like, it becomes very easy for people to, get disillusioned, I guess, would be a good way to put it. They can very easily become disillusioned if they aren't doing the thing that they set themselves on doing. And it can have a lot of impact on their overall difficulty. Because if they're playing a game solely for the purpose of beating people, but they're constantly getting beaten, then they're going to feel like they're not making any progress. Even when, as a player, they very much might be. They might be, exhibiting better footsies. They might have a stronger grasp on overall fundamentals. They're doing a better job with Oki. They're doing a better job with corner play. Things like that. But because they didn't win, they didn't get that W, none of that matters to them. And that can be rough to try to navigate around, especially if you're trying to help someone get better.
Especially if you're playing somebody who is miles ahead of you. And I've been on that end myself, where it's like I would play somebody and they were just much better than me. And so I just lose over and over. Like we could play 100 matches and I would just lose every single one. So I try to fix it. Like look at replays, study the matchup, figure out, oh, I should be punishing this because they're getting away with murder in this regard. And then I make some adjustments, and I still lose because they're so far ahead that when I make adjustments, they make adjustments, and then I lose again. And that feels like I didn't make any progress, but then if I play somebody else who is less skilled than that person that just keeps beating me up, the progress will become more apparent. It's like, hey, I'm actually landing 75% of my D&D combos. I used to only get like every other one, or like not even that, like 10%. But I actually did learn how to do D&D most of the time. But I didn't notice against this other guy because I never got the chance to try it because they were just steamrolling. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because even now, like I play fighting games in the most casualist sense. Like if I'm invited to play sets with people, I'll play, but I normally don't seek it out myself unless I just really am in that mood. And what happens a lot of times is I will be rusty or flat out just don't know the details of like changes to characters or systems or something like that off rip, and it'll take me a while to adjust. And then while I'm adjusting, I might be playing like my good buddy who I've played fighting games for years with since I've been playing them, and that first hour or two he's just kicking my ass back and forth before I can adjust, and I will, and then that might work a few times, and then he'll adjust to that. But because he's playing more than I am, he's more finely honed. So it might work. It might work, but then it might not work as effectively anymore. So then we turn around and we open the lobby up and we're playing against randoms. I'm like, man, their defense is way more sloppy than his. I'm getting these overheads all the time on these people. Like,
Yeah.
and I can convert into my B&B. It's not the delay, it's not the lag or anything like that. I'm just fumbling in the scramble, and I don't get my B&B.
Yeah, especially if they play the same character.
Yeah.
As, like your nemesis, and it's like, oh wait, I played. In my case, it was Eddie players, because in the community I was part of, like we had a legit Christie player and a legit Eddie player. The Eddie player in particular was one of the best players in our whole group. He would kick everybody's ass. But then you come across like the average kick spamming Eddie player online, and it's like, to me it was like, in some cases it's like, okay, you're not nearly as good as our guy. Your Eddie's actually kind of sloppy because you're just, face rolling the controller. This matchup suddenly doesn't seem that bad because I can figure this out. You like doing the cartwheel kick that sometimes ends in a mid and sometimes ends in a low, but that's like your only mix-up. You're not doing the stupid hit confirm thing that he has and exploiting dodges during stances and stuff. So I can just go in because, there really isn't much else to this guy's style with this character because they actually don't know what they're doing. Compared to the one we have, who's a monster.
See, and that actually just kind of describes like how I really got into fighting games in general for myself, like as a whole. Because me, we're all on the I wouldn't say we're old, but we're on the older side. So Street Fighter 2 came out. There was either in the arcades or your corner store or Bodega or whatever that had like the Street Fighter 2 machine in there, and you'd mash buttons and whatnot. And then you got the home console when maybe you played over a friend's house. And me, I always had an older brother who was like 7 years older than me, so I was always losing to him. And anytime I get close, he'd find something to annoy me and keep me from like winning. Then I met a friend of mine who would, he lived quite some ways away, so whenever he visited or I visited, it'd be like a week at a time. And I feel like the average person would probably give up. But when I say I would literally play him like 500 times and lose every time, that's pretty much what happened. Yeah, it was like I could not beat him in anything. It wasn't even just fighting games. It was like racing games, anything. I just could not beat him. I'd come close sometimes, but I just couldn't beat him. And then finally, like one summer, I just went and I grabbed Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha and Street Fighter Alpha 3, I believe it was, on the PlayStation, and I sat down and I'm like, I'm going to learn this stuff. Like, I need to do something different because I'm not going to give him good matches unless I'm doing to other people what he's doing to me. And I sat there and I played, and like most people, I started off on a pad, so I played till the inside of my left thumb was raw from me trying to do all this execution stuff. And as was so kindly brought to my attention by you and Arya, I was definitely spoiled in having Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha as one of the games to help me learn, because the trials in that game were legit things that you would actually do in matches. So I would do as many trials as I could for every single character every day and try to beat what I could each time, or try to do it quicker. So at one point it was like it would take me forever to do a couple trials for each character. And then as I did more, then I try to do it as fast as I could. So then, a training session would be, me trying to figure that out, and then me going through them again and getting through it as quickly as possible. Like, how many times can I do this, like, in a training session? And I did that for an entire summer. And then, like, at the end, it was like, I was like, wow, I think I understand this. Like, I figured out things like charge partitioning and all this other stuff while I was playing, and I wanted to learn how to teach other people. So when I was doing that and they would get the concept, I realized, like, I learned a whole lot more than I thought I did. So I was literally starting to do to other people what he was doing to me. I'd be like, hey, pick my character for me. And
No.
Yeah, the epitome of I'm the best person in the room. When you start doing random select or having people pick your character.
Yeah. But it was like, and the thing about it was, it's like I didn't skimp. Like, I literally taught them everything I was learning for whatever character they wanted to learn. Like, I went and did extensive stuff with each character. I'm just like, yeah. And I'd be like, hey, pick my character for me. And then they think they'd be slick, and they'd be like, all right, well, how about you pick like Zangief? And I'm like, all right, cool, bet. Like, I learned how to fire off. I learned how to fire off a 360 like super quick. And they're just like, how do you do that? And I'm just like, yo, it just takes a little practice. And I even taught my dad how to do it. Yeah.
I have to add that to mention Zangief. Zangief is possibly the best. It is the best that Zangief has ever been. I'm pretty sure he's actually at the top of the tier list. Right, like just at the top. Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha Zangief was. He was SNK boss Zangief, so that was a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, at the time I didn't know. It was just one of those things. It was like, yeah, I could do this stuff with Zangief. But like, yeah, it was fun, but it was just like, I definitely, we're talking about like a sense of like progression. I definitely felt that. And in the losses video, like, it was like I hadn't seen my friend in a while, and when I actually finally got to play him in a tournament setting, I almost beat him 2 sets in a row. Almost. It was like I beat him the first set, and the second set came down to like last hit, and like I lost, but it was crazy because I really felt like I made a huge amount of improvement because he was actually trying. Like even he was surprised that like I came that close. And then the next time I saw him, like I completely surpassed him. Like I beat him. There was this other dude that a friend of mine was like, he was so sure that I'd be discouraged from playing him, when in reality, like playing him just lit a fire in me even more because like, you know, I was getting games off of him, but he was beating the fire out of me. Like he was just, he was definitely beating me, and he was starting to say certain things to me while he was playing, and I'm like, all right, if he's saying something, obviously I'm doing something wrong. And he was just like, you're not bad. He goes, but certain times you do things that like you don't have to, and it doesn't seem like there's a purpose for when you do it. He goes, he's like, just make sure if you throw something out, you're doing it for a reason. So it was just like, and it was like every time somebody gave me advice, I always tried to like compartmentalize it. Like even if I didn't understand it fully then, it would stick with me. And then eventually as I got better, like that advice would make more sense to me later on. And, you know, it was like, it got to a point where I started going back and forth with him, and it was like, he was like my new, you know, like, top rival. So it was just fun. It was fun. It was just like that kind of progress. Like when I was younger, it was great. But you know, sometimes it's really hard to see the forest from the trees when, like you guys said, you're playing somebody who's constantly, you know, just kind of like curb stomping you over and over again. And like when I teach people, you know, if they're playing me and nothing but me all the time, in order to help them understand that they're actually getting better, what I do is I will take them somewhere and I'll have them play other people, and then they'll start to see that they're beating people. So it's like, and I'll like just let them know, like, see, you are making progress. Like you wouldn't be able to do this if you weren't. And kind of like goes in line with like the thing I did in my last video where I was talking about like people who they don't necessarily see their progress, or they do. And it's like there's like I kind of broke it down into like 4 types, and obviously there's like negative and positive aspects, you know, versions of it. But it's like there's overconfident, confident, quietly confident, and then the unconfident person, just like flat out. And it's like overconfident. It's like there's people, and I'm pretty sure you've met some of these people, and you see them online, and you see them, you know, on Twitter and whatnot. But they're the ones that like they feel there's nothing that can stop them. Everything they do, they've improved. You know, people would be like, yo, if you thought you knew me yesterday, you don't know me. Allow me to reintroduce myself. Like one of those things. You know, like they'll be like, yo, I'm constantly getting better. Like everything they do, like every minute I'm getting stronger. And, you know, for better or worse, that's their mentality. So it's like they feel like they can't regress as long as they have this mentality. That's like the overconfident person. Then there's like just a straight up confident person who, you know, they'll see the visual improvement, but it's usually only when they can see it. And, you know, they're sure of themselves, they're very critical, and they're their own worst critics, but in a good way. And then there's like the quiet confident, which for the most part, like that's me. You know, they see other people's progress and they kind of use it as a gauge, but not necessarily negatively, just like, hey, I played this person and I did this when I played them last, and they're doing this. Maybe I need to work on this because they improved it, and it, you know, make adjustments here, make adjustments there. And if somebody tells them something, or they say, hey, you're improving, I see this, you know, they take it and they internalize it and they use it to improve. And then there's the unconfident person, and we kind of already touched on this type of person, but it's like, I don't like to say like people are super negative like that, but it's like usually the unconfident person is like, they're like the most negative way possible about themselves. Like they're like, dude, I just suck at this game. Like I'm so terrible, blase. And it's like, maybe they're not. Like they're actually pretty decent at the game. They just can't see it themselves. And, you know, even sometimes they'll win. They'll be like, I don't know how I beat you. Like, yo, I was probably just mashing here. Like, my bad, bro. Like, I'm just terrible at this game. And it's like, it's like they just don't want to listen to other people when people tell them that they're actually getting better. But, you know, there's always an exception to the rule, but I kind of feel like that kind of, it's a big umbrella, but it kind of encompasses most players, whether you're casual or semi-casual or competitive. I don't know, what do you guys think?
I definitely agree with you when it comes to the different types. Like when it like break it, obviously there's going to be exceptions to those rules and things like that, but I've met people who fit those molds throughout the entirety of the time that I've been playing video games in general, not even just fighting games. And even me being a mostly like not even like, 'cause I haven't played one tournament in my life, but I have, like, I played competitively and I played locally and I played online, and it just kind of I couldn't parse it into words, but I always felt like something like that existed. Because and I also feel bringing it back to the whole like gauging one's progress and feeling like you hit a wall. I feel like when you depending on what compartment you fit into can affect how fast or slow you get past that wall as well. I know for example, like the not necessarily the, well, I guess the unconfident type. The unconfident type, I feel, if they it's usually a person rather than themselves that makes them feel like they can't progress further.
I think
'Cause-
like a teammate or parent, sibling, friend.
More like let's say the concept of a rival, like before when we were talking about rival. If they get to the point where their rival, so to speak, they can't even so much as get a win off of them in a set anymore, then they've hit the wall and they feel like they suck. That's their go-to comment there. They suck. It could be for whatever, like it could be for whatever reason that they feel like they suck, and then they might even know that they're not trash, but they're calling themselves trash because they can't even do what they did yesterday. You know.
I actually have a theory about that specific type of player because we talked about that a lot in like but it's like the emotional player, which plays better when they're feeling themselves and plays worse when they lose confidence, you know.
Right.
So they can be both, depending on how well they're doing and also how they're feeling themselves. Because we have certain players here, and I would say like I'm that's the one I identify with. But we have had a really good player here who was the epitome of like the emotional player, because when he was feeling himself, he was an unstoppable brain just coming at you, and it's just intimidating because he would just he would play like Seth in Street Fighter 4, you know, the gamble character, and he would just guess DP or pile driver, and because he was feeling himself, he would just keep going for these high risk options, and they would just work because he was confident that I'm gonna do the pile driver this time because I've counted 1, 2, 3 DPs on wake up in a row. That should have set the pace of this match, and I'm confident that I conditioned you to next time you're going to block. I counted. It takes 3 for you, Mika, you know, because you're not willing to just let people get away with shit. But once 3 times, that's usually enough, and now you're gonna block, and lo and behold, freaking pile driver. And like, I hate you so much. And of course, I saw the same guy, like, lose confidence because he couldn't hear the audio during like the grand finals of like this big tournament, and that made him lose confidence because he couldn't hear the audio cues that he was looking for because there was an audience and they were chanting and getting super excited, and he ended up losing, and he was in such a sour mood afterwards, you know, like just whipping himself. How could I lose to this guy, you know? I should be able to do like these FADC combos into Ultra 2, like I can do that in my sleep, but I lost because I messed up. So that's a player type that I've seen. So.
And I like how you I like how you brought up, because that mood is obviously affects when those type of players say those things, but I feel like mood also plays a big role in whether or not they actually progress at all, whether or not they see it, you know. Because sometimes they'll progress and they just won't see it just because they didn't hit the goal that their eyes are on, but they're still heading there. They just think they haven't moved at all. The road's longer than they thought it was.
Yeah, because the emotion clouds their judgment. So.
Right. And then sometimes what happens is they're telling themselves they're not doing X, and that they're trash, and that they're just not performing, and then they just end up not. And that's the terrible thing. That's the terrible thing you hate to see. Some people do get caught in a rut, and then it's solely because of their attitude of they didn't see what they were doing, so now they just don't want to progress any. Like they don't want to take a step forward anymore.
Because they want that emotional high.
Right? Yeah. The dragon got too far away from them.
Yeah.
So they just lost sight. And I feel like it can happen to anyone really, but I feel like it happens to the unconfident more often just because they're more prone to it. Because it can happen to an overconfident player too, like if they get humbled.
Yeah.
Right.
They thought they were gonna beat everybody at the venue, and then they got double perfect in the first match.
Right. O2'd and pulled. Right. O2'd and pulls. Suddenly they're not so active. It's funny because like my personal friend group, I feel like we all kind of run that gambit of we have the ones that are confident in what they do. Like I'm fucking nice. I'm not gonna brag about anything except what I know I can do. But if I know I can do it, motherfucker, I can do it. And then we have the quiet confident types where it's just like if I play my main, you know what to expect. Don't play me. Like and then I have like really close personal friends that fall into the underconfident type. Where I know, like, because it's funny because I feel like what people that kind of fall in that trope don't understand is that sometimes their attitude can affect others too.
Yeah.
And what happened, like, because I know it happens to me a lot, where I know people that I would consider to be better than me, or I consider myself to be on equal terms with them. And they would get into those modes where they're just like, "Oh, I'm trash at the game. I'm like, I just don't know what I'm doing. I don't understand why I'm competing. I don't understand why I even fucking play this game." And I look at myself and I'm like, last time we played a set, last time I played a set, you won 2-1, or 4-1, or I couldn't get so much as 2 games off of you every set.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you're so bad, then what's that make me?
Oh yeah. I actually have. I would like to hear your guys, your thoughts on this. Look, we had over here. We had this thing that it happened several times to various degrees, but there was one in particular. Because this was when we were playing. Everybody was playing Tekken 6. Everybody and their mom was playing Tekken 6. You could challenge anyone off the street and they would play Tekken. I'm not kidding. We actually tried this a few times.
That's pretty
Tekken
crazy.
was big over here. Yeah, we used to like challenge random people in like the school restaurant, like even the staff. Because everybody played Tekken and Tony Hawk. But what ended up happening in that game was that it was like this. We had this sort of mixed event where we had like 2 groups that were like kind of close, but we were in different towns, and we got together for like a weekend and we played a lot of Tekken. We would, have some new matchups, play people we didn't normally play, and have like round robins and first 10s, like settle who is the best Asuka player between me and this other guy, for example. There was this trio. It was me, a Jack player, and a Roger player. And I played Asuka because I always play Asuka in every game. But what happened was it became sort of a rock paper scissors kind of deal, because I could never beat the Jack player, like, to save my life. I just couldn't beat him no matter what I did. I got like for the whole event I got 1 match off of him because I was doing the infinite, the White Heron combo that Asuka has.
Mm-hmm.
I got that to work once. And he was looking for the opening, but it's like she just keeps attacking because the string never actually ends. But that was the only time I beat him, and the next time I tried that, he just low parried me, and I was dead. So, but then I played this Roger player, who is Roger in Tekken 6 was like all about these frame traps. But I'm playing Asuka. She doesn't give a shit about your frame traps because it's Asuka. If she wants to press a button, she presses a button. She has special properties of everything. So that was, I thought, hey, this matchup, not even that hard. Like, I don't even care about your frame traps, because I've got reversals, I got like 25 different high crushes, I don't even know how many low crushes I have, but one of them is a launcher, so if you try that tail whip, yeah, can. That's half your life, or possibly a round. So I would beat him. Every time we played a first 10, I would just beat him. Like 10-2 or something. And then he would play the Jack player, and he would absolutely destroy him. And it's like, but so I lose every single match except one to the Jack player. He loses to the Roger player all the time, and I win against the Roger player all the time, and it just went round and round like that. So what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, everybody has like, matchups and whatnot that they have problems with, right? Whether it comes down to character or it comes down to player in particular. everybody's got something that it's going to be a pain for them to overcome, regardless of whatever. I have experienced something very similar, playing the literal thousands of matches throughout the Blaze Blue series against my friend Zero. People know him as 0 Hour. He's like, he's been playing loads of tournaments. He's played in loads of tournaments and stuff. He's done pretty well for himself, and just in general, he's a strong player. Like, I've never played him in a fighting game where he's been bad at it, right? So that's saying a lot. And in Blaze Blue, in particular, for a long time, he mained Jin, right? His Jin was really strong. And what this did, like, playing against his Jin so often, it was basically prepare me for what the character had going on. I would run into other Jins online and everything like that, and there wouldn't be much of anything that they could do that would surprise me, right? Sure, I'd run into a Jin on occasion who could, like, get a W on me and whatnot, but then I could adjust, and in the next match, provided they didn't just one and done, we'd play that next match and things would go in my favor, because, okay, I understand what you're doing differently with the character. And now that I understand your side of the matchup, we've got this covered. But for the most part, he had so many things on lock with Jin that, like, other Jin players that were below his level, they weren't able to approach me, basically. And
because they weren't him.
Right, because they were not him, right? So this creates an interesting dynamic, because I, in turn, here I am, a Makoto main, and I knew a lot about her as a character, right? And I would see him play against other people using the character. And to me, it would be baffling, because there'd be points in time where, like, he'd be playing against other people using the character, and I'd be watching, we're playing in a lobby, and he'd get hit by things by this person that I can't open him up with to save my life, right? And I'm sitting here and I'm just like, how are they hitting you with this? In the last 8 matches we played, I tried this against you multiple times, and not once did it work. But it took me time to realize that it didn't work, because we played each other so often, right? So it was like, we had a pretty good grasp on, like, one another's, like, playing styles. And because he played against someone else using the character, there were certain habits that they didn't have that I did, that he could catch on to. And it took me time. I had to, like, actually kind of think about it for a moment and be like, okay, this doesn't mean I'm necessarily doing poorly, right? I'm not being predictable in the sense that, I'm doing the same thing against literally everyone. It's the fact that this person in particular has played me literally thousands of times. So he knows my habits. He knows, like, my mindset in certain situations. So it's less about being predictable and more about the concept of he knows when I'm going to mix things up. In a way, it's predictability still, but, it's not to just the blunt point of I know exactly what you're going to do when, right? So
it's probably conditioning.
Right, exactly. Conditioning does have a lot to do with it, especially considering he knew lots about frame traps and, guard strings and whatnot with Jin that were just, they were so gross, especially in the corner. Just, disgusting. And like, oh, you tapped me with this, and now I'm forced to block this, and now I have to make a decision. And if I make the wrong decision, I get hit. If I make the other wrong decision, I'm stuck in block stun. You know, so it got really rough sometimes, and like knowing that he could force that kind of thing is like that's just a testament to how much he put into learning that character and being able to maneuver that character around that particular matchup. So it would always bother me to see him play other people and then get hit by things that I would typically do. And even he would say, like aloud, I don't know how that hit me either. I'm like, I know you don't know.
I can almost see in front of me some random Makoto squad that's like going for the sweep and actually doing the sweep. It works because he's like, what? You know, the rolling, like he sees it coming, but he's expecting the throw, but then they just do the sweep. That 70 frame startup one. Like, oh, guess I got hit. Because Arya never does, you know, never actually does the move.
Who would ever do this move gets hit by it.
Yeah. It's just because Makoto. I mean, I don't know the character that well, but I know that particular move where it's like if you get hit by that, it's gonna make you feel like, oh, what? You actually did the move?
You know, but it's like it goes hand in hand in a way with the earlier point made where there's the concept of, you know, if you get hit by something, you know, or rather if you lose to someone who's losing to something that you feel is lesser, right?
Yeah.
And then what does that say about you? It's the Dragon Ball Z Frieza, you know, syndrome. All Frieza talked about was how worthless the Saiyans were. You know, monkey this, monkey that, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And then he gets mopped up by Goku on Namek. And then Trunks later on down the line. So for all his trash talking of Saiyans, Saiyans are exactly what bodied him. So this was something that, you know, had to hit his pride. He's like, oh, yeah, I've been down talking Saiyans for this long and I got this prejudice, but they're also my worst fear, so what does this make me?
Yeah, he got trashed by the same beings that he was talking down to twice. Because he got the rematch and he lost that one super fast. He came back for vengeance and all that did was make him lose in record time again. Because he wasn't ready.
But guess what happened? Like later on down the line, of course, after revivals and everything, he did the typical, like, you know, the typical FGC thing. He finally came back and was like, nah, this is never happening again. I'm actually gonna train up and get better. And he did, but then he fell in line with one of the, you know, quote unquote overconfident players. He got better, legitimately, but thought he was much better than what he actually was, and things kind of fell apart from there.
Then he lost confidence, and Goku had to tell him, "Hey, you were actually onto something here." Because he did.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much.
Yeah.
That was Vegeta.
Oh.
And then he saw Goku.
Yeah,
and he
Vegeta
saw
too.
Go beyond God.
Yeah, Vegeta
He was like, you know
too.
what?
Yeah, they had to give him the pep talk about how he actually did improve, even though he didn't believe it right then. That's actually a perfect example from anime of all things.
Right.
I do actually have one more, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to get your thoughts on this. because it ties into this as well. So like when you're on a losing streak and you're looking for ways to improve, one thing that I personally always do, and it was also a thing that I learned from the guys that I played with, because we would do this as a regular thing to like work on our weaknesses pretty much. So we would have mock tournaments with like mini prizes and stuff, and also punishments. So like for example, if you were in say a round robin, it's like if you lost every single match, you had to do like a sort of punishment game, like cut your hair or cosplay as your character or some silly thing like that. So that there was some stake, like you can't play a round robin and lose every single match. You actually have to win at least one. So you have an incentive to keep trying, even if it's the last one. Make sure you win that last one. Don't give up. You still have a shot, because the only reason you get the punishment game is if you lose every single one. You just have to win a single one. To keep everybody like motivated, so that you wouldn't just give up. And the mock tournament was like if you win, you get like a bag of chips, or you can the others will buy you a can of soda, whichever one you want, on the way home or something like that. So that you would have some incentive to be like, I want that prize. I want to be able to tell my opponent that if I win this grand finals, he has to buy me that soda, you know, because I don't want to buy him a soda, because that's like insult to injury, because, you know, first I lose the tournament and now I have to buy him this prize. I'm gonna make him buy me the thing to work on our tournament nerves, so that when we were at the venue, it wouldn't feel you know, out of place, because we were like training to get used to that sort of thing. And the last thing we did, because again this was like during the Tekken 6, Street Fighter 4 era, when I was really getting into like the tournaments and stuff. You remember from back in the day, it's like the 360 and the PS3, people like communities didn't necessarily agree on which one was the premier one early on. So a thing we would practice was just using different controllers, using different televisions, using the different systems. Like we would have when we did like a mock tournament, sometimes we would play on a 360, sometimes we would play on a PS3, sometimes we would use, you were only allowed to use sticks, other times you were only allowed to use pads, you know, so that the stick players would have to be at a disadvantage and just learn how to use the pad so that they would get too full of themselves, and the pad players actually like, oh yeah, I can totally beat you if we're all using pads. Now you see how hard it is for me when I have to use a stick? Do you get it now? This is what I'm going through, you know? We played, we even played, we only did that once. We tried playing a Tekken tournament on a DDR dance mat. We didn't do that again.
I was gonna say, I don't know about that one. That's ooh.
Yeah, but at that point it was just, you know.
Yo, could you imagine Electric Wing Godfist on a DDR dance pad? Like, oh no!
Try doing that thing, it's impossible!
You would legitimately break your ankles.
Doing the Phoenix Smasher was hard enough, but it was at least doable. Just really hard. But yeah, the general idea was, yeah, work on your weaknesses and try your best to like never ever be at a disadvantage. You know, if we're gonna have to play on a 360 using the OG 360 pad, you know, the kind of bad one that didn't have, you know, design.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, we would just kick ass, collectively. That was the idea. Or if we were playing on the PS3 and it was a really laggy monitor, we would have strategies for that. Like, okay, if on a laggy monitor, I'm gonna go for this combo, because even with lag, at least this one is consistent. I can do that in my sleep. So what are your thoughts on that?
Like, I like the idea of introducing those types of factors, not even in a equalizing sense, but just more like it helps. I feel like creating adversity like that would help some people get better, because sometimes when you think about it, it's like, I'm not improving. How do I improve? Sometimes sometimes some people just need to get pulled out of their comfort zone, and that's and that's the impression that I got from all that. But it was just kind of like the equivalent of, let's go to the hyperbolic time chamber with weighted clothes.
Yeah,
bringing it back to DBZ.
Yeah, because even if it's not a disadvantage to you, it might be a disadvantage to the opponent. They might lose because they're playing on a laggy monitor or like using a 360 pad or something. But like, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy who only loses because they're not used to the controller. Because of some tournament you don't like.
Yeah, see,
right.
I feel like when it comes to that, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the last subject, which there was a lot of noise going on in the background, which is why I didn't speak on it. But I feel like when it comes to stuff like that, that is especially great when you have a community. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a large community. Like, some people don't understand, like, a community can be like 3 or 4 people. Like, it's still a community no matter how you do it. But stuff like that, it's like, I had a friend, we were learning Arcana Heart, and everybody had their own character. But it kind of came down to me and this other dude, and we'd go back and forth. It'd be my Maori versus his Lilica. And I kind of got comfortable in the way that I played Maori. I'd switch a couple things up, but like, I had my bread and butter that I came up with, and then I just played a zoning game, and if I got into my groove, it was really hard to stop me. But the same thing happened with him when he played Lilica. He got into a groove. Then he changed his style up with Lilica. And then he goes, "Hey, I have a suggestion." And I'm like, "All right." He goes, "Let's play each other using each other's mains." So I played Lilica, he played Maori, and it's funny because I beat him using his old style.
Oh yeah, because I've seen it so done so many times.
I'm like, yeah, I know what to do with Lilica for this, so I was beating him using his old bread and butters after he changed his style, and his style change was really good. Like, I loved his new style, but I didn't exactly know how to do what he was doing right then and there, so I used his old style to beat him.
Yeah.
But it was funny because he learned really quickly that it wasn't the character, and it wasn't what the character was doing. It really was me, because he tried playing exactly how I played, and it did not work well for him at all. But stuff like that is fun, though. I honestly feel like when you've got a group of people who they're willing to, they're not afraid to take losses, they're willing to laugh at themselves, they can take a little friendly trash talk and dish it back and whatnot. Yeah, I don't mind doing stuff like that at all. Like, I used to have a group of friends, we would do that. We just kind of not that we necessarily aren't friends anymore, it was just like, life kind of put us apart. But yeah, I used to do that with them. Like, we'd sit there. I remember they came to visit for a bit, and the first night we were waiting on my one friend, and the first night we were literally, like, from the time they got there, we had played at least, between the 3 of us, like 500 games of Marvel 1. and
Uh,
it was like I remember the numbers were something outrageous. It was like I had like 200 or 300 some odd victories. The other one had like 180, and then the little brother, like his little brother, even like got his wins in. He had like 90. It was like we were just sitting there, like we were tallying up all the numbers, and it was just like it was fun. Like we were just doing different stuff, trying different teams, just ragging on each other whenever we lost. It didn't even matter if it was our main team or not. It's like, nah, you hold that L. Like a loss is a loss. Like.
yeah.
But yeah, I enjoy stuff like that. Like I also think it's a good idea because sometimes it's actually just good, like you said, to step out of the comfort zone and to try a character you haven't tried or you wanted to try, or maybe even a character that you struggle against.
Yeah.
Because it could give you an idea or an insight of something that maybe you hadn't thought of before. And I feel like sometimes people just don't do that enough. Like sometimes it's like if they're really in a rut, like they don't think to, well, if I'm really struggling against this character, let me try using them.
Mm-hmm. I know, I don't. Yeah. I know, I don't do that.
Sometimes I don't. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like sometimes I don't, but I don't know. It's just sometimes it's just jarring your reactions. Oh, what was that, Mika?
I actually always end up doing that sooner or later. Like, in a simple example, again, Tekken, because it's the one I'm most comfortable talking about. But I tried playing other characters who also have reversal moves, like, Asuka, to see, okay, so what is it like for these guys to do the same thing? Like, Ana is really good at the whole reversal.
Yeah, I was like, so Williams.
Yeah, Anna Williams. She's the second best one because she actually has. Well, she's not anymore because East is in Tekken 7, but at the time she was, because she was the only one who had reversal for like shoulder tackles and low attacks, like a straight up reversal for low attacks that was rare, and also being able to counter shoulder tackles. I don't think Nina can even do that at the time, but don't quote me on that. But either way,
I'm not too sure. I just know Anna.
Yeah. Because Anna is the one that if Asuka didn't have a counter for it, Anna would have, and if neither of them do, nobody does. But that wasn't so much like, oh, Anna is such a good character, I should use these characters, but more like, man, I have a whole new appreciation for the character I usually play, because if I try to do the same stuff using this woman, that would not work out very well. I'm going back to Asuka because I appreciate some of her tools way more now. I like having the 4-2 as a punish. I like having the Hell Sweep instant, thing. Because Anna doesn't get to have these tools. But it was interesting because at least Anna had, jabs that are actually plus on block that you can actually use for pressure, because Asuka doesn't have that, at all. So it was interesting to see, from the other side, and, what would it feel like to have these tools that I wish I had, but I have to give up the stuff that I like. I always end up doing that because it ties into the thing where it's never be at a disadvantage. So it's I'll go through every character, look at all of their stuff, all of their moves and gimmicks, so that at the very least, even if I don't know how to play the character, if somebody else does a move, like say Whip in King of Fighters 2002, the gun, the HSDM she has in that game, the gun that is unblockable. It's nobody will ever get to use this against me without, at the very least, me being aware that this is a fireball that you actually can't block. Because I've used the character enough so I know this gimmick is not gonna get me, what the hell was that? How did that hit me, Because I know it's unblockable.
or if you get hit by... I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I got started because you brought up KOF, and I was like,
But continue, please.
if you get snatched up by Orochi Shermie's HDM, just smash roll, mash roll.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like that sort of thing. Where it's like I don't play the character, but I know what this move does. You can't catch me off guard. Even if it hits me, I know what the move does. You know, I'm not going to be wondering like, oh my god, what does this move even do? How do I deal with it if they do it again? It's like, no, I already know. I've been in practice mode to look this up. I may not have a strategy for it, but I know it's there.
Right. And sometimes sometimes you don't even have to end up playing the character yourself to find that out. Sometimes, yeah. Like sometimes you learn it from imposing those challenges upon you and your friends. It's like, oh, let's do random select. Like, or if you don't want to be that harsh, it's like, oh, you can play anybody but your main today. Nobody uses mains today. Or if it's like Marvel or Dragon Ball Fighter or something, it's like you can play everybody, but you can't use X as anchor, or you can't use this person as lead.
Yeah, and you find out stuff like if you take King of Fighters again, because I found that out sort of with mine in King of Fighters 98 specifically, because it was single elimination tournament thing. Either way, I found out that about that character was like, man, her zoning is really good in this game.
Yep.
I kinda expected this from Athena, because I know that's how she rolls, but I didn't quite expect Mai to be the Sagat Tiger Cannon machine gun.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm glad I know now, because, man, I'll do that myself if I have to pick a character that I don't normally use, because I know from personal experience that this fireball is much better than it first seems. Obviously it's Mai, she has a lot of other stuff going on, but that fireball caught me off guard. Didn't expect a second Athena spammer.
Right. Especially in '98, where they were like, "Oh, well, we're gonna give her the DP also in this game, and she's gonna also have her decent normals and air normal." Right.
Yeah. The DP was like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna jump that much because I know that you have this move." Yeah, I love that. You get insights like that. Why keyboard?
Yeah. A lot of interesting thoughts, right? I think that we have strayed pretty hard in a number of ways from the initial topic of difficulty in fighting games, but as is the thing about fighting games as a whole, like, a lot of it goes hand in hand, because you can't really talk about the overall difficulty of fighting games without talking about some of these aspects in the first place, right? So, I mean, I think it's a good thing that we got a lot of these thoughts, right? Primarily, though, I think one of the biggest takeaways is people of various skill levels, whether you're trying to play casually or you're trying to play seriously, you're gunning for tournament play, right? You're trying you're either trying to make sure you don't go 0-2, or you're trying to do your best to get up into like top 16, top 8, or just win, right? Like, regardless of what it is you're shooting for, your general mindset and the way that you interact with the people that you play with, your community, and how you take wins and losses, and what you take from the matches that you play. All of these things have a lot to do with the overall difficulty that you will experience when it comes to learning, because you may actually be learning like a lot from all these experiences. But if you don't feel like you're taking anything away, things are going to be harder for you. So I think the best bit of advice that can be given in regards to general difficulty when it comes to playing is find what it is that makes you play. Focus on that. And from there, turn that focus into your drive, your reason for playing, and push forward with that drive. I think I'm pretty sure a lot of people can probably agree with that, because even if you just want to come into a tournament to be like, I'm gonna be stylish, I want to see what nonsense I can get away with hitting people with as long as I'm in this tournament, right? Even if you want to do that, that's very much a possibility. You know, some people can straight up make a name off of that alone. And you will see some of the craziest sequences, right? But it gives people a reason to play, and it gives, in turn, them something to shoot for as a player. And these kinds of things can help you overcome your personal boundaries once you understand them and can apply yourself so that you can improve yourself in these areas. So, you know, anyone who's generally listening, right? Hope you took some things away from this while we rambled for close to an hour and a half, right? Yeah, it was a fun discussion. I've got no problem with this at all. You know, hopefully you all took some things away from this, and end of the day, do not give up on what it is that brings you into fighting games, or any endeavor that you do, honestly, but fighting games in particular, since that's the subject at hand. Like, don't give up if it's something that you're passionate about. Find that thing that makes you passionate, and remember that at the end of the day, you have to be responsible for your own sense of fun, your own sense of enjoyment. Find that thing that makes you enjoy it and move forward with that. That will make things, in the long run, a lot less difficult for you than they need to be. But that's about it for, you know, this Mind Over Mix-Up podcast. This is Arya, along with Tempest, Nika, and Kazumura, and we're all about to sign off here. So everyone, stay safe, stay happy, and stay awesome.
Later.